person beside you.
Good evening. My name is Joyce, and I'm the president of the Kankakee County branch of the NAACP. This evening, we have the opportunity to listen to the 40th District Senate candidate. Before I go any further, I want to make sure, I don't know whether the media here, I did have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Lee Provost. Let me be very clear. There was 4 individuals that were sent an invitation to participate in the 40th Senate District of Illinois and the 79th State Representative District of the state of Illinois. All 4 of them were sent the invitation, and it would make truly no sense if only 3 would show up and 1 said maybe they was not notified. Let me be clear again, all individuals that were being candidates for both of these forums were sent an invitation, and I want to just thank our Political Action Committee for the continued work that they do. So again, we are here to hear the individuals that will be on the November 8th ballot, their views and their respective platforms. Note that we are on video live this event for the audience that's out. Note that Ms. Jamise Lee is one of our panelists. It's Ayanna Smith, and with that, we're going to have Senator Joyce. He would have a 3-minute opening, closing statements, and we will also be receiving questions from the audience. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. First, I'd like to thank the NAACP for hosting this forum. Events like these are vital for voters to know where candidates stand on important issues that we face and work to find a solution. I'm Patrick Joyce. I'm running for re-election to continue advocating, being the voice of the 40th Senate District in Springfield. To give a little background on myself, I was raised here in Kankakee County on a family farm in Essex, where I live today with my wife Rita and my dog Earl. We have owned a composting operation for over 25 years in Essex. I've been honored to represent the 40th District in Springfield for almost 3 years. I'm running for re-election because the 40th District is a very diverse district. We have rural, suburban, and urban communities that all have unique needs. It's vitally important to get the perspective from all communities, from Richmond Park to Braidwood. When legislation comes across my desk, I have conversations with mayors, constituents, and community leaders to get feedback on how these issues can affect the various communities. That's why I fought for projects such as the University Park's water crisis, Kankakee River Project, the Pembroke Natural Gas Pipeline, and the Southland Revitalization Act. Getting some of these important issues passed even meant standing up to my own party at times, because for me it's about the local issues that affect the people who live there, not the party or the politics. I look forward to discussing the important issues that the 40th District and the state of Illinois face this evening, and how we can work together to address them. Thank you.
Senator, let's start with some of the hot button items that currently exist in the state of Illinois, the county of Kankakee, and again, the other 101 counties in this state. Let's start off with police reform and Bill 3653. I'm in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I know I've been in various meetings that you've been attending. Can you tell us the update on what are you doing on behalf of the individual that you represent regarding Senate Bill 3653?
Thank you for the question. 3653 has definitely been a hot button in Illinois. I did not support the Safety Act, and I've been working with state's attorneys, the Sheriff's Association, police chiefs, and the advocates for the bill. And my candidacy was supported by these organizations because of the work I have done and the work I am doing. We're in the midst of working groups that are discussing the bill, had several conversations with groups of state's attorneys, with colleagues in the Senate on what some of their main concerns were on the bill. I've had the same conversations with the Sheriff's Association. And because of that continued work, all those organizations stand behind my campaign.
Ms. Lee, you have any question in there? And those individuals that's in the audience can fill out a index card and we'll receive them up front.
Just to piggyback off of the initial question, can you tell me why you don't support the bill?
The bill was an 850-page bill. I didn't vote for or against it. I'm not a lawyer. We were received the bill late in the morning, and casting a vote against or for the bill based on the lack of knowledge that's what was in it. I know what was being negotiated out of the bill. Several of the things that were removed were qualified immunity, collective bargaining, and that moved some people from one position to another. Working with the state's attorneys on some technical language that needs to be cleaned up, inconsistencies in the language that is going to give 102 different state's attorneys 102 different perspectives on what the law says is a real problem. So that's the main issue, and the state's attorneys that I'm working with are Democrats and Republicans, and the colleagues that are listening to it, the same goes there. I've had conversations with both sides of the aisle on the issue. So the bill has a lot of good merits. It also had some real problems.
There's a question from the audience, and it said, what are some of the other major issues in the 40th district, and what are your solutions and other recommendations?
I think one of the main, and this is probably not what you're going to hear from a lot of state senators or state reps. I think probably one of the main issues that we have in the 40th district is clean, affordable drinking water. And the diversity on where the challenges are in fresh water go from antiquated pipes in Chicago Heights to aquifers that are drying up in the rural western parts of Kankakee County. The quality of the water is going down. University Park had an issue with lead in their water lines because of a change from Lake Michigan to Kankakee River. And working through all those issues shows that it is a continued problem. There's a lot of issues in this state that you can politically be divided on one way or the other. If you don't have water, you're not going to have a town. And that has to be one of the main issues. Even the city of Joliet last year, we passed legislation that they've been on an aquifer that is anticipated to be dried up within 10 years. You have 10 years to develop that infrastructure to come from Lake Michigan. That's now, you're already behind. So those kind of issues I think are going to become bigger and bigger as we move forward.
Also, there's another question from Mr. Olson, who's in the audience. Can you seek about a state grant for drainage district, Joe Barron Drainage District limestone? Absolutely.
I mean, any of the drainage, there's a lot in the federal infrastructure program that deal with drainage and water issues. The Village of Braceville, we already secured them a drainage grant last year. Bring those issues to my office. Those are the ones that I really enjoy doing, is that you can get a grant that solves a problem in a community. That's the best you can do as a state senator, is find a problem, fix it. And so if you've got a drainage grant that you're looking for, please contact my office.
And then, Senator, even going back to 3653, let's talk about, there are some good points in it. Can you expound on some of the good parts that's in it?
Absolutely. Police body cameras. We had Village of Bourbonnais, I think, 6 years ago, started body cameras. This is as much a protection for the officers, and I think maybe even more so, than people that are arresting. But it's transparency, and that's what we need in all of our law enforcement, is transparency. So the body camera issue was a big part of it. The 3653 had some challenges in funding of that body camera, and I was able to secure money in the last budget for capital investment in body cameras in almost every community in the 48th district. And getting the cameras first, but then you have to have ongoing funding for redacting and recording. That funding has to be there, but I think the body cameras is probably one of the best issues when it comes to the safety act.
Can you explain Senate Bill 818, the sex ed bill, and HB 156 about in the boys' bathroom?
Yeah, no problem. Senate Bill 818 was a sex ed bill. And the main thing that I voted for it, and the reason I voted for it is because every school district in the state can opt out of it. Every individual parent can opt out of it. If you can opt out of it, it's just all about choice. You don't want your kids to do it, don't do it. And on the other one, which is tampons in the boys' bathroom, we have a thing called iConstituency, which is how we keep track of who's contacted our office on certain bills. I had several advocates reach out in the district that were championing the act and had conversations with the several different young ladies that were saying, hey, we want you to support this. We had 0 emails on that. And the only conversations I had were from people within the district, and I supported the bill. For instance, the healthcare right of conscience bill. My office received 300 emails on that particular bill. Probably 280 for it, to vote against it, and maybe 10 for it. I voted against it. That's what the district wanted. So I'm just following what my constituency was wanting me to vote.
Senator, mass shooting and gun violence plague America. What can you, or are there any legislation that you're working on, if any, to address this problem in Kankakee County and the state of Illinois?
Illinois has some of the firmest gun regulations in the nation. And a lot of the problem that we have with accessibility to guns comes from our neighboring states. Indiana, Missouri, Wisconsin, you just go all the way around the state. If you were to ban any of those weapons in Illinois, I can make a 42-minute drive to Indiana, get the same gun. The problem is we have to have further mental health conversations. We need to stay with the FOID card. It kept 5,000 people from getting guns last year. That's just in 1 year. And those are mental health and people with criminal records. You don't want to abolish that. Those 5,000 people would then have access to guns. I think it's a federal issue that we need to have. If you're going to do something, you got to do it nationally. Because us doing things more strict in Illinois doesn't solve the problem.
Everybody says that gerrymandering is bad, but the party that's in power in every state, Democrats in Illinois, resist doing anything about it. So how do we have to do something with that particular issue?
I missed the beginning of your sentence.
I said, everybody said gerrymandering.
Oh, gee, okay, I got you.
Is bad. And always the power party that's in power.
Yeah. And it's a double-edged sword. I mean, right now the Democrats are in control. I don't disagree with that statement. An independent counsel on doing the maps, absolutely.
I don't know if you answered this one, but this is also from the audience. Do you feel that 3653, the Safety T Act, would the street really be crawling with murders and criminals as be said by the Republicans?
There is a lot of misinformation out there right now on the act. Again, I didn't support it, but the rhetoric out there right now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a farmer. So legal interpretation of the bill, who's going to get let out, who's not. I think that a lot of the negotiations that are going on with the state's attorneys need to continue, and the rhetoric that's out there right now, some of it may be accurate, a lot of it's not accurate. It's not helping the situation. We need to fix it and move on.
Do you agree with the message of the NAACP, vision, mission statement?
Yes.
The numbers of Illinois public school, high school graduates who enroll in out-of-state university continue to climb. What can Illinois do to make state universities more attractive to our Illinois high school students?
Better weather. That's a joke. It's a joke. But I think that that's something that all of our universities need to get together on. And how do we want to let our talent leave the state? No, we don't. That's a big conversation with all of our state universities and our community colleges on what do we need to do? Why are they leaving? What is the incentive or disincentive? Are we charging too much? Are we not offering the same classes? Those are conversations that those boards of those schools all need to get with various organizations across the state on why are we losing our talent? And if so, and are we losing our talent? So, I mean, that's a conversation that I think all the colleges need to get together. I think they do have those conversations, but that needs to happen.
Ms. Lee?
What are your top legislative priorities? Give me two.
Two top legislative priorities. The perspective of people about those of us that are serving in Springfield needs to change. And I think that taking a common sense approach and ethics reform, I voted for every ethics bill that's come in front of the Senate, I voted for it. We can continue down that road until we get it right. That has to happen. And then secondly, our healthcare system right now is at about 4 or 5 different levels. The actual healthcare provider, the insurance companies, the drug companies, all need to get together and make healthcare, and insurance companies on top of it, have to get together and make healthcare more affordable and more available. We have disparities in the 40th district. We've got the 80th and the 79th in the 40th district. 79th has 2 hospitals. 80th district has 0. And when we got the hospital assessment, the first year I was in office, and there was only Riverside and St. Mary's on there. And I'm like, well, where's the other ones? Well, St. James had closed 5 or 6 years ago in Chicago Heights. We have smaller immediate care type facilities there, but no hospitals. No, that has to change. Food availability, the same thing goes. We do pretty well here. You get up into Park Forest, University Park, and the south part of South Heights, there's no grocery stores. That has to change too. So those are maybe more than 2.
Senator, what separates you from your opponent?
I take a common sense approach to this job. Probably one of the biggest things that I've seen just in the short amount of time that I've seen my opponent. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I really don't. Your community issues and your issues matter. Reach out. Every community issue doesn't just fix the problem for the Democrats or fix the problem for the Republicans. You work as a community, and the divide is something that disturbs me. I'm a very moderate Democrat. There's Democrats that get mad because I vote too conservatively on some issues, and then there's other issues that people think I vote too liberal. This is a district that is split right down the middle. I mean, you're a 50-50 district. Guess what? Half of you are going to be mad no matter how I vote. And if you just have conversations with people and explain to them why you're voting the way you're voting, and take a common sense approach to it, I think that's what everybody in the room wants, ultimately.
Ms. Smith?
This is a question from the audience, Senator Joyce. Who do you call for radon testing, R-A-D-O-N testing? Radon testing in Kankakee. It's a cancer-causing radioactive gas.
I lost a sister-in-law to lung cancer. Never smoked a day in her life. Her house was tested. It was extremely high in radon. Google it. I mean, there's radon testing facilities. There's radon testing, just like you have a fire extinguisher or a fire alarm. Mm-hmm. There's radon alarms too. Mm-hmm. We ended up taking that house and retrofitting the whole thing to get the radon levels. So I got a little bit of experience on that.
Assuming your victory, choose one single issue that you would prioritize in your coming term and name it and describe it, what you want to accomplish?
Infrastructure problems are throughout the district. I'm going to go back to the water issue. That water issue is enormous. And we have small towns and big cities that are challenged with it. Dealing with Illinois Department of Natural Resources on water allocations in both Chicago Heights and New Lenox were issues that came at me about a year ago. Working with DNR, working with that Great Lakes Commission, working with the city administrators. We got through New Lenox pretty easy. Chicago Heights was a little bit more of a challenge. They have 18% non-revenue water. You know what non-revenue water is? It's leaks. That's a lot of leaks. And it's something that is coming at us and it's not going to change. Trying to help get some of the federal infrastructure dollars to help resolve that problem is a big deal.
Can you expound on economic development and things that you've done in the 40th district?
Yeah. The last 3 years, since I've been in office, Illinois has had 6 credit rating upgrades. 6. We've also had, we've got $419 million worth of road work to be done in the next 5 years. That's already accounted for. We've already got, our bill backlog in Illinois was $17 billion 4 years ago. Today it's 0. College Illinois, which I don't know how many of you got kids that signed up for College Illinois, severely underfunded. We were paying a lot in interest. I mean millions in interest. It's fully funded now. The $500 million extra that we paid in the pension debt last year accounts to $1.56 million in interest savings over the Edgar ramp, which is 90% funded pensions by 2045. We saved $1.5 billion in interest by making that $500 million payment. We're doing a lot of work on getting our fiscal house in order. When that fiscal house is in order, you aren't paying those millions of dollars in interest. And it's becoming quite evident that we will be able to fund more towards education, towards infrastructure, towards your local parks. Getting your fiscal house in order makes a big deal on the bottom line, which means that we can do a lot more projects in our local communities.
Here's a question from a participant in the audience. What is your plan for the Department of Correction facility on Route 102?
That facility is an interesting story. It's been closed for almost 15 years now. Trying to determine who owned the land was a chore in itself. IDOC, Illinois Department of Corrections, ultimately we found out leased the land from Illinois Department of Natural Resources. In the lease, we found that it says that you will leave the property in the same condition that you originally leased it for. That prison was there for a long time. If you drive by it now, trees are growing up through the buildings, there's graffiti everywhere. To go from my house to the northern part of the 40th district, I drive by it every day. It's an eyesore. Nobody sees it because it's buried in the trees. I'm working on getting money through the Capital Development Board on cleaning up the site, number 1. It is owned by IDNR, so it's part of the state. It can be part of the state park. Love to see a lodge there, but let's get it cleaned up first. So not get the cart ahead of the horse.
Another question from the audience. How do you feel about cannabis dispensary in Kankakee?
When the law was passed in 2019, it was right before I got in office, the amount of revenue generation that industry is bringing to the state is allowing us to do a lot of programs in a lot of communities that need the help. I think every community, if it's done right, should absolutely take advantage of it.
So we talked about 3653. How would you, what is your views, or better yet, how would you hold law enforcement agencies accountable for excessive force or force and unlawful police killings?
It's part of the reason why the bill initially passed. There's counties in this state that are doing things the right way. There's counties in the state that are doing things the wrong way. A lot of what we do in Kankakee County are models of what we should be doing across the state. I know that our county, with the sheriff and the state's attorney, NAACP, do reviews on who's in prison. And if they shouldn't be there because they did something that they needed to do for their family and they're not a danger, Kankakee County already releases them. It's kind of what some of the Safety Act is doing. So there are some goods in what's going on, but holding people accountable and getting the dangerous people off the street, that act's not going to change that. Dangerous people are dangerous people.
This is, would you support using part of Shapiro Developmental Center to house the homeless?
There's a lot of acreage at Shapiro that's underutilized. I mean, a whole lot of it. I have had some initial conversations with stakeholders that are around that, the city, the county. It's at the beginning of a discussion. We have an opportunity, if we have and need the housing, which we do, it absolutely should be considered.
Senator, most citizens are really tied into transparency. What is one of the ethics reform proposals that I know that was in the Senate and the House that you think will make a difference to keep elected officials more accountable and transparent?
Well, one of the ones that I supported was there was a policy where you could be in the legislature and be a lobbyist. That just does not make sense to me. We voted on abolishing that. Also extending it to where I think it's 2 years after you're out of office before you can lobby. Another one I voted for was term limits on leadership. And that passed. So, I mean, we're heading in the right direction with ethics reform.
So if there's anything that you want to expound on to those in attendance and also out there on social media?
Well, I think it's this job takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it takes millions of conversations. Again, the diversity of the district is something that is unique to the 40th district. I mean, we have such a, I mean, if you go to the north end of Chicago Heights, and then you go out to Essex or South Wilmington, vastly different people, vastly different situations, vastly different economies. You have to have all those conversations to represent this district properly.
Illinois currently protects women's reproductive rights. Will you vote to continue this protection?
Yes.
You want to deal with your closing statement?
Sure.
Or if there's any question, I don't have any other questions from the audience. Miss Lee, you have anything for the Senator?
There's one more question.
Ms. Lee?
Ms. Lee?
Sure. One for the road. What can Illinois do to improve its elementary and high schools?
We've already started it. Evidence-based funding is something that has made a big difference in a lot of the school districts across my district and also in the state. Each of the last 3 years, we have put $350 million extra into evidence-based funding. And the evidence-based funding is basically just finding a formula on schools that are having challenges with getting the education that our kids need. So I'm very proud of what we've done that, and I hope that we get budgets that we can continue to do that. Other than that, I would say that working with local school boards, I've had countless meetings with school boards across the district. If you've got ideas on something you think the state's missing, please call me.
Ms. Smith?
Governor Pritzker signed over 40 bills into law, some that took place effective January 1st of this year, and then some that will take effect January 1 of 2023. But this bill specifically, Senate Bill 1976, it requires the Illinois Department of Corrections to place a sign at every visiting waiting area containing information regarding a point of contact person for all suggestions, complaints, or other requests. And this bill came effective January 1, 2022. The question is, why did this particular bill have to be passed? Was there not any signage in?
Wish I could answer your question.
Okay.
I can get back to you though.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are the perks of having a national landmark versus registering as one local?
I'm not sure. Again, give me that question when we're done. I can get an answer.
Workers' right amendment, how will it impact how schools present their curriculum?
Say it one more time.
Workers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I know
But
what that
let's
is.
talk about the worker rights amendment.
Okay, all right.
So,
Well, I mean, if you roll the calendar back a little bit, under Governor Browner, he was trying to make Illinois a right-to-work state. I mean, right to work. This bill will ensure that it gives everyone the ability to collectively bargain and to fight for the rights of their workers. That's what it is. It's a constitutional amendment, and that is going to be up to the people of Illinois to decide.
then it said also, how will it impact how schools present their curriculum? So, I don't know what the person is military. Ms. Smith, do you have that one?
So the question from the audience was, what are the perks of having a national landmark, just nationally, versus having a registered landmark here locally, so in the city of Kankakee or just in Kankakee County?
Tourism, I mean, would be your main one. I mean, it depends on what the landmark is, but I would say tourism would be a big deal. I don't even know the process for how you become a national landmark versus a registered landmark, but it's something that our office is very good at digging into.
Senator, what is the state, and I know that the Illinois Department of Education, but what are your thoughts, staff and other political leaders' thoughts about the shortage of teachers, Illinois, nationwide?
Right. We passed, I wrote a bill last year that allowed part-time teachers to teach up to 120 days instead of 90 days because the pandemic and what was going on really affected our shortest staff. And I see Robert nodding his head. It's a challenge that we have throughout the nation and not just the state. Used to be, I mean, think back. Everybody knows who their favorite teacher was. You can think of them right now. The pride in teaching, how do we bring that back? It's not just all dollars. It's the reward of teaching. And I know that the teachers that I had that made an big impact on me, I still keep in touch with them to this day. So I don't think it's just dollars. I think it's part of the problem is dollars. But I think it's also the pride in teaching. How do we incentivize that? I mean, that's a really good question. It's something that we should all be working together on. Yeah.
Another hot button.
A follow-up to that.
Another hot button issue is the Clean Energy Job Act.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I mean, what are some of the things that you're doing regarding renewable energy?
Well, a little background on the Clean Energy Jobs Act. The 40th district that I represent, without that bill, loses 2,500 high-paying, good union jobs at our nuclear plants, period. There are 4 or 5 things in the bill that I have some issues with that I think can be worked out. The downstate industry and economy and energy and reliability is based on coal, which in that bill is done in 2035. There's things such as carbon sequestration that down in Decatur they've been doing for 16 years. That needs to be taken into consideration. The one thing I will say on that part of the legislation is that there's going to be other general assemblies. And I think you have to take several things into consideration. Your economy, reliability, carbon emission, absolutely. But it's all three. It's not one or the other. And in that energy bill, the impact of, had we not passed it to the 40th district, was devastating. You're talking $16 million in property tax loss in 2 different villages within the district. We couldn't let that happen.
Are you still, are there any plans in the near future to host any other senior fairs?
Oh, absolutely. They're well received everywhere in the district. They're always well attended. And we're pretty good at bringing in good guest speakers that are topical. I mean, fraud issues, things of that nature. We had the Attorney General's office come in to one of them, but love holding them and give everybody a free lunch, and it gets you a good turnout.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Homeowners are concerned about an increase in property tax. Should the state assist homeowners with property tax?
There's a lot of ways that the state can help people with their property taxes. I passed a bill called the Southland Revitalization Act, and it'll be implemented at the end of this year. It's taking 6 townships in Cook County that have over 1,800 commercial properties that are inactive. It's lowering their EAV by half to encourage investment in those properties. You get those properties back on the tax roll, that has a major impact on your personal property taxes. If you think you have high property taxes here, where we're sitting, Park Forest, which is in the 40th district, has 38% property tax. That's devastating. It's not sustainable. So bringing back industry to those type of communities and bringing back investment in commercial properties can help offset your personal property taxes. The other way we can help as a state is to make sure that we're putting the right amount of investment into our schools from the state. You go back 25, 30 years, the state was putting in 52, 53% towards your school's costs. We're at 26% right now. We need to do a better job of funding from the state level so that your personal property taxes, your property tax bill is about 60% of it is your school. So that's what we have to do.
Human rights voters, but buzz button, high button, EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion. How can, and you just stated earlier about how the 40th district is minorities, black, brown communities. So what are some of the other initiatives you plan on doing with EDI, equity, inclusion, and diversity in the district?
It's not, it's every aspect of legislation needs to make sure that we are taking care of all the people of Illinois. The CEJA bill, the Clean Energy Bill. Equity is the second word in that bill. When we're doing legislation in the marijuana field, the R3 programs, Revitalize, I mean, it's those communities that you're helping. So I think that the state recognizes the challenges that we have in our broad base of communities across our state, and I don't think you're going to see that go away anytime soon.
So in the past, being that we are in the Midwest, we didn't have to worry about too much immigration, migrant. What are some common sense, well, tell me your views on the idea that migrants are being passed around the United States, and what are some common sense laws that you think should be put in place?
Well, you're really getting into the federal arena. I think laws that we pass in Illinois would be, I mean, you look at how Chicago reacts to that, or certain areas that are in blue states and blue cities, they react different than red states and red cities. It's something that we need to get our arms around. I mean, everybody in this room comes from immigrants, and how we address that issue is something that has to be conversations with everyone across the board, every community, every black, white, brown communities, Democrats, Republicans. People want to come to this country. People have always wanted to come to this country. That's not going to change. Doing it in a responsible way, I think, is a conversation that's getting a little bit lost in the political rhetoric across our country. I mean, we're always going to have immigrants coming in. And why are they leaving their country? I mean, that's something that our country's always stood up for, is human rights across, the globe. So I don't think, I guess I can't answer that Illinois won't do anything like that, but I think it's going to be more of a national issue.
So I'm not sure if the city of Kankakee is a sanctuary city. But let's say that next week we receive a bus of immigrants coming from Governor Abbott's Texas. So how would you be involved with, let's say, the 3 mayors or Mayor Curtis in assisting them with the various resources that would be needed?
Well, I don't think you're going to have a problem with the administration for the state stepping up. And then I'd be the perfect liaison to have those conversations. I mean, that our state will handle it the right way. We always have.
I got a question. Senate Bill 1962, it repeals the Commission on the Elimination of Poverty Act, which has been largely replaced by Illinois' Commission on Poverty Elimination and Economic Security, passed in the 2020 Black Caucus pillar. Why do you feel or have any idea on why this bill was necessary to pass, and how would that affect your constituents of the 40th district?
I really don't have an idea or the details on the bill. I'd rather look at the bill and give you an educated answer on it when you're talking about the hundreds and hundreds of bills that we have every year.
Okay.
Give me a heads up, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Senator, so you have any closing statement?
Sure. I want to thank you and the NAACP again for hosting this important event. There's a lot on the line in this election, and we must continue to build on the progress that we've made in the last 3 years. We must ensure that what's happening in other states since the Supreme Court overturned Roe, that never happens in Illinois. It's not the job of government to make healthcare decisions for women, and I will always fight to make sure women's rights to choose is their own decision in Illinois. We must continue to get Illinois' fiscal house in order so we can continue bringing many great projects and investments to the district and across the state. We must continue passing responsible, balanced budgets so that we can continue to receive credit rating upgrades and save the state millions of dollars in interest. We must continue to expand access to job training so that everyone has the opportunity to learn the skills needed to earn a living. And I will say that the 40th District has several of the trade's fantastic job training facilities. Often there are a lot of components to a single piece of legislation. For instance, the comprehensive energy bill that was brought up earlier. This was passed last year and had some parts that I didn't agree with. At the end of the day, it came down to saving thousands of local good-paying union jobs. The job as state senator is to show up. I've been here in office, I've seen, since I've been in office, I've shown up and take pride in that. Showing up, answering constituent calls, and being active in the community is what comes with being an elected official. I built a long-lasting friendships with the residents of Cook, Grundy, and everywhere in between. When I'm in Springfield, I'm thinking about each and every one of you. I work for you, not the other way around. The rhetoric of Democrats versus Republicans and red versus blue needs to stop. We need to work together and come to the table to find solutions on issues people face on a daily basis, like access to clean drinking water. The district needs someone who works on both sides of the aisle and represents the entire district, not someone that only caters to their party only. It's about showing up and doing the work for you. I've never put special interests first. I put the constituents of the 40th district first. I thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate you putting this together.
Thank you. I'd also like to take Mr. Steve Bertrand, Director of the Kankakee Public Library, Ms. Lee, Ms. Ayanna Smith, and our school board member, and second vice president of the NAACP, Mr. Jess Gavin. And we'd like to thank all those on social media and also the individuals that attended our 40th District Senate Forum. Again, thank you. And in 20 minutes, we're going to convene the 40th, 79th State Rep Forum with the hope that both candidates are currently present. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You bet. Thank you, Ayanna.
You're welcome, thank you, Senator.
Battery.
I didn't get a card.
It's all good.
So we need to, yeah.
I'm gonna shut it off. Give that a rest.